Live from the J.C. Newman Cigar Studios and the Gurkha Cigar Studios in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Smokin Tabacco Show with your hosts, Matt Tobacco and Pat Chamberlain.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of the Smokin Tabacco Show. My name is Matt Tobacco from SmokinTabacco.com, and I'm joined once again by my very good friend and co-host, Mr. Patrick Chamberlain. Patrick, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. You know, it's just another day, you know, working away, as I'm sure you know. You know that feeling, working, not enough coffee in the day.
It's never enough coffee in the day.
It was an interesting day, on the legal stand front, I guess. Not that you were involved, but, you know, the Karen Reed trial that everyone's been talking about, finally came to an end. A verdict was reached. I'm actually curious to get your thoughts on it. I know we talked about it before. And she was pretty much acquitted of all the charges with the exception of just like an OUI, a standard OUI, no manslaughter or anything like that. She was found not guilty of all the other charges. So essentially, she was free. I thought I read, I don't know if it's true. I thought I read that she got the standard first time offender like punishment or whatever for a regular OUI, like a year of probation. I think she has to take. Do you guys like make people take the Sorry, there's been something bothering me in my eye all day. Do you guys make people take? Or I don't know, maybe it's different in New Hampshire, but like if you get convicted of a OUI or DUI, they have to like take like a course or something like that, like a crash course thing, or like responsible driving or something like that. Isn't that a thing?
Yeah, I mean, she's gonna the DMV in Mass is gonna have the license revoked. I don't know how long it's gonna be, but before she can get her license back, she's gonna have to probably pay a fine, and there's usually some kind of programming. There might be some kind of a test that she'll have to take, and on probably alcohol programming, like substance abuse programming. I didn't
Yeah.
see. It was probation and everything, so I don't know what the intricacies of the sentence were, but that's usually pretty standard. Nothing. I mean, essentially, she was acquitted of everything because I think defense almost conceded the alcohol portion of it. I mean, they argued against it because there wasn't evidence of when the last drink was, but I think it's pretty abundantly clear that she had drank, through her own statements, a lot of alcohol that night.
Yeah,
So
I
I mean,
would
that,
say
that was
that's
the
pretty
best
fair.
scenario. Yeah, that was the best case scenario that they could have had out of that trial.
Yeah, I don't think she would have got away like completely clean, but I was thinking if she gets off and everything, like they're gonna get her on that. I kind of figured that, and I think that was what made everyone so confused with the jury. Because I don't know how much of it you followed. I'm sure you probably being you and being
I watched,
interested.
yeah, I all the questions and everything. I kept up to speed with the whole trial.
Yeah, because I know, was it yesterday when that happened, and everyone was talking about the jury had questions and there wasn't clarification on the, what do you call it? The verdict form, the verdict slip.
Yeah,
And I know the judge like wasn't answering some questions, and like at first I don't think they were gonna revise the slip, and then they did for today. So I think what it was is I think they were hung up on like, well, I'm pretty sure she was drinking and driving, but we don't think that had anything else was involved, and I think they were trying to figure out how to like. I don't think they understood like that they could just, pick on that, and I think that was part of it too, because it seemed to me, and from what I heard and what I read, and whatever, it seemed like their other charges when that happened, it seemed like they already had their mind made up. They already knew what they were doing, and they were just trying to get like the clarification on this piece. But yeah, I mean, I guess in a way it's a win. Well, it is a win because she's not getting convicted of murder, so that's a win. But like you said, I think it was best case scenario for them. So I couldn't believe how many people outside the courthouse. I watched the video actually of like when they read the the verdict in the court, you can like hear the people outside just like going nuts. Like when the Celtics won the NBA championship, it was like, holy shit! I didn't realize it was like it was that big of a thing. Not the trial, but like I didn't realize there was that many people flocking to the the courthouse every day. It was insane.
That's why I mean, unfortunately, I mean I've been asked because everyone who's talked to me knows my opinion that I think she definitely had something to do with it, but it's one of those things where like juries do not like police misconduct, like they hate it, and that's conceivably the biggest taint of this case. I don't necessarily think there's enough evidence that someone in the house killed him. Certainly, there's a basis for the belief that there was. I mean, there was evidence that wasn't admissible in this trial, such as the basement, I believe, was redone shortly after this. It's allegedly shortly after the instance. I don't think we actually know when it was redone. It could
Yeah.
have been redone before. I mean, it was redone is all I know. So obviously the theory of defense in the first trial was, I think there was like a gym type thing in the basement. So I think they said something like a barbell or a dumbbell was used to strike him in the back of the head, and there was like a back door, like one of those like like those like the basements, like what do they call it? Like
You mean like the bulkhead door, like when you
bulkhead
go?
door.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a bulkhead door in the back of the house. So they, like they're saying they dragged them from back there and all the way around. There's a fence going to the front yard, and they dragged them through there. And the dog, at some point, I don't think they ever decided when, but at some point the dog bit him, probably when he was in the house and he was fighting with. I think it's extremely far stretched. I don't believe it, but again, like the lead investigator was a douche. He got terminated for
Yeah.
being unprofessional. And honestly, I think one of the biggest flaws, I think that the Commonwealth did the best they could. At the end of the day, like one of the things they teach us is we don't, like as a prosecutor, we don't pick our evidence. We just have the evidence. So, I think they did an exceptional job with what they had, because truly what they had was a shit show. I mean, I think the evidence shows that there was a collision. I know the jury thought otherwise, but the issue that I found is they didn't place the body on where it was located in the yard, and I think that was reasonable doubt. Clearly something happened that busted the taillight. I don't buy that the taillight was planted. I'm sorry. It's so far stretched the taillight was planted, and those timestamps and videos of the taillight being damaged, like that's why I think it happened. But at the end of the day, if you're a jury and you have someone's liberty on the line, if you can't, you're not going to speculate as to how the body got there, and you can't. And that's all part of the instructions in a jury trial is you can't, a reasonable doubt, like how did the body get there? Well, it could have been attacked by someone, and that's how he got there, right? Like, even though I don't think that's, what happened, it's certainly a reasonable doubt because there's no evidence to the contrary of how the body got to where it was in the yard. So, I don't disagree. I also think like that jury, you're never going to get a jury that has no outside influence. I mean, the second the verdict was read off, you could hear the outside of the courthouse blowing up.
Oh man, that was nuts.
If you're a juror walking into the courthouse that day, I mean, you're seeing all of that. It's so is it fair to the Commonwealth? No, but I mean, at the end of the day, it is what it is, and I feel bad for the family because I mean, they're never going to get closure, unfortunately, and Karen Reed's probably going to be a millionaire after this. But it is what it is. That's what happens when there's a shoddy investigation and a extremely unprofessional state trooper that frankly should have never been in service. So that's what happens. You don't pick your evidence, you just have it. So
now, what about actually, hold that thought. Let's do our two opening segments really quick, and then I have a question for you. Oops, sorry, wrong screen. Our cigars once again brought to you by the number 2 guyscigars.com. That's right, the number 2 guyscigars.com. Head over there today for an amazing selection of cigars and accessories. Only the best. The number 2 guyscigars.com. I am smoking the Aging Room La Boheme. This, I believe, has already shipped this year. This is out. Or it's not really new. I think it's a revival of La Boheme. But this is my second one, and I really enjoy it. It's very rich, very full-bodied. But it's everything about it's pretty. I don't want to say perfect, but it's excellent. Burn, draw, construction. Um, the complexity and the changes in the flavors of the first one, from what I remember, it wasn't too long ago. I really liked it, and so I saw I had another one, and I said I'm gonna probably grab one of those because that was good. That was a good cigar last time. Pat, what are you smoking over there?
So I'm finishing up the Perdomo Legacy Nicaraguan Sun Grown with Busto.
The shade
I'm
grown.
just about shade grown. That's my my bad. I wish they had a sun grown in the Legacy, but never mind.
I love
Um,
Perdomo sun growns, but it's I'm in for the change.
I'm in for it. I think it's a misplay. I mean, obviously, I'm sure. We talked to Nick Perdomo about this project. He's every in and out of this thing he was looking into and testing. So I guarantee you, he probably had a sun grown at some point, and he just didn't think it was, going to fit with the project. So I would be interested to try because I think Perdomo makes one of the best sun grown cigars. And
I agree.
from my experience, like just from smoking these blends, I think that the Nicaraguan shade grown does really well in the binder. I like it more in the other, like the Maduro and the Connecticut's my favorite so far. I would have been interested to see how it was with a sun grown wrapper, but maybe one day we'll find out. Who knows? But I'm gonna probably smoke because this is almost done. I have the new LFD Aura. Well, I don't know if it's new. The
It's not
new,
new. It's been repackaged.
yeah, the repackaged. And then I have the 601 Warhead just came out. Which just
Should be
got
the
released.
11, right? Warhead
Yes.
11? Yeah. Those
You know,
Warhead 11, then they were doing an Independence Day one, and then
yeah, I think
they did some redos.
this is the Independence Day, which
Yeah.
Warhead, La Bamba, bombs with what's going on in the Middle East right now. This is probably a fitting cigar for today, but
Oh,
you know,
wow. I see what you did there. I see what you did there. Oh, you know what? I'm going to smoke the bomba.
yeah,
How
might as well.
appropriate. Yeah, I haven't
Yeah,
even
so
checked updates on that. Are we fighting with Iran? I don't even know.
I have no clue. I just know what probably everyone else does. I haven't really looked into it a whole lot. I've been flooded with Karen Reed questions today, so I haven't looked at anything beyond that.
So can I not ask any more Karen Reed questions because you're
Oh
you're
no,
already
I'm
done?
fine. I'm about it.
I mean, how can you not? It's like the OJ trial, right? People are gonna be talking about this one for years to come. Um,
Yeah.
and as always, with us, we have our friends from ST Dupont shaking up the legacy with the new Monogram collection. That's right, the new Monogram collection came out. Well, I tried to. I'm not a lefty with the lighter, so excuse me. There is the light too. Available now. Ask your local ST Dupont retailer today and shake up the legacy. What I was going to ask you before was so we were talking about Karen Reed's trial, and I know your position is you feel that you feel that she was guilty, she was involved, right? Now, obviously, there's a lot of people that feel the opposite, but there's also been a lot of attention on. Was it the Albertson? What's their name? The family who owned the home where he died.
The Alberts. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, so I heard. I didn't research this. I kind of heard bits and pieces, but apparently, there's already an investigation into them by the FBI about a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't know if you've heard that or how you feel about that. I don't know if it's true. I don't know, but there's that story floating around now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I haven't really honestly looked into any of that. Like I haven't really been going beyond this trial, but I don't. I mean, I know that there was the federal investigation ended with no indictment, and I think at this point we know the scope of that, and the fact that there's no indictments, I would say, kind of shows that they were not. I mean, I'm not going to say conclusively they weren't involved in it, but I don't know. I mean, it's the, every like I've gotten in debates with diehard Karen Reed supporters, and by no means is it unreasonable to think she was not guilty. Again, like I think just in the field that I'm in, I see a lot of things that like when you're in a trial, there's only certain things that are admissible, especially in a criminal trial.
Mm-hmm.
So there's times where I have evidence that literally shows that this person did it, but just the rules of evidence we have to abide by. I can't introduce that in a jury trial. So, and obviously, like after the fact, like jurors are like, "Oh, I wish I knew that." It's like, well, yeah, but you can't know that because the fact that you would punish him based on that fact is the whole reason why we can't prejudice the defendant by bringing that in. So,
Nope. Pat froze.
that being said, I don't think it's unreasonable for people to think that she was not guilty. But what I am I still frozen?
You not fro.
Hello?
You're kind of like coming back now.
No.
I think you're
See,
good.
I don't think it was
I think you're
unreasonable
good.
for people. The thing that every debate I've been in with somebody who thinks somebody else, from that party, killed John O'Keefe, I'm never like there hasn't been an argument yet that I've been compelled with, and frankly, I usually counter argue against it. It's like it's all accusations and allegations, and there's no evidence that really shows that it happened. Like people mention. I'm losing track of his name. The ATF agent. Oh my God, I should. The third party culprit defense here. Oh my, what I'm talking about. The ATF agent. I don't know why he's on an Albert. He's like a good friend of
He was
the Albert.
involved.
Well, no, that's what everyone thinks he's the one that did it because they established a motive. Like he was flirting with Karen Reed. Karen Reed kind of gave him the cold shoulder the night of the incident at the bar, and they think that motive was, um, you know, supporting killing John O'Keefe out of the jealousy of
Like a motive.
him.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Which frankly, it's pretty even with the motive that I think Karen Reed had to kill John O'Keefe because their relationship wasn't sunshine and rainbows either. But nothing. Oh, Higgins, that's what it is. Sorry, Brian Higgins. So everything that's been brought to my attention as to him being responsible, you talk about reasonable doubt. Like I have a lot of reasonable doubt as to why. Like I know, like the cell phone getting destroyed is a big piece of it. I say this a lot. There was a lot of reasons why people destroy phones. I mean, there's a lot of stuff on a cell phone, so that doesn't. Now, I'm not. There's something on the phone he didn't want people to see, but that doesn't mean it was evidence of this crime. And frankly, I don't really think that there'd be something on his phone that wouldn't have been on other people's phones who they had access to, right? So, and that's why that wasn't admissible in the second trial because the Commonwealth a lot better kind of roping in what can and can't be spoken about. The first trial was like the Wild West. There was not enough objections to the evidence being brought in. So that's why that wasn't in this trial, but it's really not relevant. Like there's no evidence that there was anything on that phone that would have, shown that this happened the way that they were portraying it. As it comes to the Alberts, I know a lot of people are like, oh, the dog's always in their bedroom, and like, you know, it wasn't in the bedroom that night apparently, but also there's no evidence where the dog was. I mean, the thing that we know is everyone was heavily intoxicated. Like, it's maybe the dog wasn't brought into the room that night because they were drunk, and again, you're shit faced. Like, you might not hear or wake up in the middle of the night of this all that commotion going on outside. And there's been times I've been shit faced, personally, like in college. And if someone was dead on the living room floor, I probably wouldn't have noticed them. To be honest with you, it's like, so I don't think that that there's certainly evidence that you can infer that he probably knew what was going on outside, but I don't think any of that suggests that he was involved in it. Um, but what we do know is he was killed. Obviously, I mean, he didn't just walk outside and get a big laceration on his eye and blunt trauma in the back of the head. So something happened, and unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to know what happened. I don't see any prosecution for anyone else in this case. I think it's just one of those unfortunate situations where you have a victim here that, you know, well, especially the victim's mother, like, lost both of her sons, and
Well, the family
it's
that they leave behind, yeah.
yeah, so it's a tragedy, honestly, and it sucks that obviously if Karen Reed did not truly do it, I don't want someone falsely convicted, but I mean that family is never gonna have any peace. Unfortunately, it's one of those things that's never gonna end, and they, regardless of what the evidence shows or what the jury thinks, that family certainly thinks to a reasonable degree of certainty that Karen Reed is the one who killed John O'Keefe, and they're going to witness her make a lot of money in these next few years off of this with no penalties. So I'm sure that's gonna kind of hurt. But again, I think the frustration should be not at the defense, but the unfortunately, I mean, I'm extremely pro police. Obviously, everyone who knows me knows that, but I mean, Canton PD and state police really let that family down. They did not do a good job of the investigation. It just wasn't. Now, granted, you factor in the snowstorm and kind of the adversities for an investigation like that at the time, but again, it's a small police department who doesn't have experience in handling these types of cases, and I think that's why when you're a taxpayer and you live in a small town, like there should be more conversations with local police to make sure that they're fitted and trained correctly to deal with something like this if it ever happens. Because I mean, it's like the solo cups in the shopping bag that they used. Again, when it comes to integrity of evidence, it's the shopping bags are essentially the same material as like the evidence bags. So I mean, that stuff I don't think on its own really means that there was misconduct or that the evidence was stale because of the way it was cared for, but it certainly shows that that department is not geared and outfitted to investigate a potential homicide, which I think is the big problem and frankly why there's a not guilty here. I think what Proctor is text messages, like notably the balloon knot text. um, I think that it's very distasteful, but I think two facts can exist. Like Karen Reed killed John O'Keefe and the lead investigator was a douchebag. But the fact that the actual investigation was, I think we just lost Matt. You
No,
still here,
I'm
Matt?
here. I just made you full screen.
Oh, sorry.
Well, you were going on your thing, and I'm like, I'll
Oh, sorry.
give you the whole. No, I want you to keep going. I just was giving you the whole floor.
But yeah, so stuff like that can happen, and it's just when the core investigation is questionable. I mean, it doesn't matter what happens at that point; it's not going to go well. So, it's at the end of the day, that's the glory of the justice system. I mean, the state has to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. So if you don't have that, you're not going to get a conviction, even though like the emotions on your side. Because I mean, I'm sure the jury wanted someone to be found guilty of this because of the family, but at the end of the day, if there's reasonable doubt, which you know there's clearly reasonable doubt in this case, then you can't convict someone. So, and it also kind of sheds light to potentially some injustice in the justice system, because had Karen Reed not had the attorneys that she had, I don't know, I think there was a lot of funding to fund those attorneys, or frankly contingencies, because again, when this becomes a big documentary or potentially a movie, they're going to make a pretty good cut out of that. But it's had she had like a public defender or something, granted there's a lot of really exceptional public defenders, this isn't a knock on public defenders, so frankly that's probably not a good example. But if she's got a regular attorney, I mean, it may not be the result. You probably would have had a conviction there. So the fact that she was able to have that support staff, definitely played a big factor into it.
Well, first of all, I know what you mean when you hesitated with the comparison. I think, to be fair, I think what you mean is, when you have a high-powered private attorney that you pay a lot of money for. Why do you pay them a lot of money? Well, because they have the experience. They've done these trials. They've won these trials. They know how to do these trials. They have the resources. They got the team. They got the office with all the other paralegals and all that. Versus the public defender, maybe doesn't have that same experience, maybe doesn't have the resources, or maybe another private attorney at a smaller scale, same thing. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's why people hire these attorneys and these attorney teams at these big trials like this, because it's like, you're fighting for your life. What are you gonna do? It's like, go all in and get the best you can get. Not everyone can, and therefore doesn't. But she was able to come up with the money. I think she sold like everything she had, which, I mean, if you're gonna fight that fight, I mean, that's what you got to do. But to your point, when it comes a movie or something, and she makes a few $1,000,000 off of the rights or whatever, however that works, she's gonna get her money back and then some, and hopefully, just for her sake, she just moves on with her life. But it's true. I mean, you look at. I mean, I'm sure you've studied other big trials, like the O.J. Simpson trial. That was another big one. I'm sure you, whether in school or just on your own, and I'm sure you have opinions on that one too. I mean, some of these big trials that are, especially the murder trials, and it's like, did they do it? And you look at the evidence. I think most people think O.J. did that. I think most people agree they think he did it. He got off on it, but I think most people think he did it. I think the Karen Reed trial, I think, is a little bit more divided by the public. In fact, I think in my experience, and I don't know, probably yours too, just the amount of people I see for her and against her, I feel like more people, think that she didn't do it. I think that's kind of fair to
Yeah, the
say.
overwhelming majority thinks she's not guilty.
Was that?
The overwhelming majority think that she did
Yeah,
not do it.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. Now, here's a question for you. So, she's not guilty. She's done. She's out of the way. Does the state move on from it? Do they try to still find a guilty party? Do they go back at the evidence? Can they do that? Is that a thing? I mean, what do they do now? Is this they lost the fight and that's it? They move on?
It's a good question. I don't know what you do at this point. I mean, certainly what they can do is, I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, I practice in New Hampshire. I'm licensed in Massachusetts, but I, work in New Hampshire.
Right.
The statute of limitations for something like, for most felonies could be like between 4 to 7 years, depending on what the offense is. So I mean, certainly they could bring charges for someone else, but it's, you go to another trial and it's going to be the same thing. Like, defense attorney is going to say, you didn't interview my client when this happened, did you? Because you didn't think he was a suspect, right? Like, it's going to
Yeah.
be the same uphill battle with the fraudy investigation right off the rip. Because now it's, instead of saying, like, it's almost the same argument, like, you were biased and you pinned it on my client, Karen Reed, because she's an outsider. Now, if you try to prosecute someone else that was at the house that day, I mean, it's going to be, so you had a suspect that you were, you won't mention that you prosecuted. Or again, we talk about what can and can't come in during a trial, but you have someone that you were investigating for 2 years, and then suddenly now it's this person. Like, if all this stuff's true, why wasn't this done 2 years ago? Like it. So I don't think you have a chance of doing that. Plus, I mean, it's tough when you have witness prep with all these people, and you have there was witness tampering in this case. I mean, I do think Karen Reed was a part of it, but there was no indictments to her for what that Turtle Boy guy was doing. But I think the relationship that the prosecuting office has with those witnesses, I don't think conflict wise they'd be able to prosecute. So now you'd be looking at an outside prosecutor, like a different jurisdiction or county, or what they do districts in Mass. I don't think it's going to happen. And the amount of resources they spent, I don't think it's likely. And I don't think, even if they put the resources to it to kind of give some closure to that family, it's not that the evidence is stale, but at the end of the day, like, you still can't put John O'Keefe where he was on the lawn with whatever happened. So when you talk about the basement had been redone, if the theory really is he was, you know, assaulted in the basement and then potentially murdered in the basement and dragged up, I mean, you have no evidence the basement's been redone. And if you talk about reasonable doubt, I mean, if I just say a basement was redone, there's no evidence of what happened in the basement, so that a jury can't infer that it happened down there because there's no physical evidence from the basement. And the dog's gone, so now they could certainly find the dog, but even if the dog was like bit John O'Keefe, that's not going to be evidence of him being murdered. There was no like,
He
his,
could
his
he could have been bit and not died.
yeah, and you can't prosecute a dog. You know what I mean? Like if my dog gets out because of my negligence and he bites someone and say that person, even if the person dies, if I was just negligent, I mean, you could have a negligent homicide, which is what the second count was with Karen, but you can't prove murder. So
Yeah.
I don't think there's any case there. Period. I think it's done. I think it lived and died with Karen Reed, and if someone who was there was responsible for it, I don't see anything coming forward. It's the same. It goes back to the police investigation. Like, if you have a bad investigation, you're not going to get a conviction.
And I know sometimes in these cases, I think it's more often when someone is convicted of something. Then usually after that, then there's like a civil suit and they get sued because it's like, oh well, you did them. Now we're coming after you for whatever. I mean, essentially, no one also can really sue her at this point because they don't have a thing that says, well, she was convicted of it. It's like, well, no, she wasn't. So I think in that aspect too, I think, you talk about what else can be done or, whatever. It's not like the family would be able to sue her anyway because they don't really have.
They certainly could, but again, it's, how do you prove that there's a wrongful death?
As actually, didn't that happen with the OJ trial? Like, he was acquitted, and then after, like, the Goldman family tried to sue him because, like, yeah, you killed him. And it was like, I didn't get convicted of that, so. I mean, I think.
I thought, didn't the family win the wrongful death against OJ? I don't quote me on that.
Wrongful death, that's what I was looking for.
Yeah, certainly they could do that in this case, by the way. But again, like, I mean, the evidence you have, I mean, there's more stuff you can bring in a civil suit. But, I mean, I think we saw, like, everything that is against Karen Reed in the criminal trial, with the exception of, well, frankly, I think the Commonwealth had most of what they needed, that they want to get in. I think the only question is there's evidence from the Alberts in that house, like the basement being redone and stuff, like I said earlier, like that's stuff that you could use in a civil suit. But again, like, I don't think you have enough evidence to, I mean, it's a lower standard. So, I mean, she could, right? I mean, she could, but I don't think Karen Reed would be the defendant in a civil suit at this point, at this juncture. I don't think she'd be the right one to go after because, I mean, we saw everything in this trial that you could bring up against her.
Yeah, I did look up really quickly, and OJ, there was a civil case filed against OJ by the families of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman after his acquittal in his criminal trial. While Simpson was found not guilty in the criminal case, the civil trial jury found him liable for the deaths and ordered him to pay $33.5 million in damages.
Yeah, because, I mean, in a civil trial, it's a 51-49, right? That's the standard. Like, in a criminal trial, beyond a reasonable doubt, it's like that's the highest burden in our legal system. So it's tough to prove. No, it's not as tough to prove as everyone makes it out to be. I mean, it's like we make decisions beyond a reasonable doubt every single day. Like, there's been times on the show, like, Matt, you start late, and then you mentioned, like, your daughter, something was wrong with your daughter. Like, when you say that, everyone's like, okay, that's why we're late. That's reasonable doubt. Like, no, he said, his daughter made him a little bit late to the show because she's sick or something happened, and then people believe it. That's simple. It's reasonable doubt right there. So every day we have reasonable doubt. It's, well, beyond a reasonable doubt rather. But again, in a case like this, there's a lot of moving parts, and you can't make that simple determination because there's just, frankly, a lot of stuff that's unanswered.
Yeah, I find it fascinating. I didn't get like deep into it like other people did. I was interested and curious, so I saw and read, like, when I could here and there. But it is interesting. And even at the end of the day, like whether or not someone did something or not, it's like you just watch the process. I mean, you do this every day, but just to watch the process of like unpacking this, and you're showing evidence here and evidence there, and then the cross examination and the witnesses, and like what's his story, and but he said something different, and you're trying to like take all this and be like, well, what really happened? And I don't know. I think it's that, and then I think people also just get. I think people just dig in and like they just pick a side too, like not in the courtroom, like like the outsiders, right? I think people just they generally. I don't. It's probably different for everybody, but they find a way to either like be with you or against you, and then it just kind of becomes like, yeah, no, she didn't do it. I bet you. Not that I'm saying that they're wrong, but like there's probably a lot of people out there who didn't really research it that much, because a lot of people did, like her hardcore
There's a lot
supporters.
of people who didn't research it.
But like they were just like, yeah, like no, she didn't do it, and it's like, well, why do you feel that way? And they're just like, I just don't think she did it, and it's like, did you even like look at any of the evidence and stuff like that? Like the whole trial was televised, both of them were. But my point being, I think that in general, I think that happens with some of these trials too. I mean, look at like the Michael Jackson trial. I remember that one. The one with him having sex with kids and shit like that.
Yeah.
And he got acquitted on all those charges, and it was a while ago, but I feel like I remember a lot of people thought he did it. Well, there was a lot of people obviously who didn't think he did it, but I feel like it was pretty split from what I remember, and it was a while ago. So I think there was a lot of people who were shocked, kind of on both sides, thinking like, I don't think he did it, but like I don't know if he's gonna get out of this. And it was like, oh shit, like he got out of all of it. And I think there was other people who were like dumbfounded at the, it's just the whole like televised trial thing. Like I don't follow that stuff, but like when there's a big one, you do, and it's kind of just like, oh, this is interesting, and you just kind of get sucked into it, and you make your own opinion, and then it's just like you're just cheering on one side or the other.
Yeah, with the Michael Jackson, I mean, I didn't watch that trial, but
Me either.
the hardest case to prove as the state is an aggravated felonious sexual assault case against a minor, because it's oftentimes it's a late disclosure. Like you might have, a child that was abused when they were very young and they didn't really know any better or know what was happening, and then like 10 years goes by and they disclose. And it's one of those interesting cases. It's the only case, for one, the statute of limitations is the most lax in any criminal law because of the nature of how long it takes for a victim survivor to reach out. And the actual like burden of proof, it's still beyond a reasonable doubt, but at least in New Hampshire there's an instruction on, it's the only criminal trial where if there's an instruction that if you believe the victim beyond a reasonable doubt, like you have to vote guilty. It's the only time we get an instruction like that, like based off of one witness's testimony. If that's enough beyond a reasonable doubt, then you don't even have to look at the other evidence. It's just the credibility of that victim survivor. So when it comes to the Michael Jackson case, I mean, it's a tough case to prove. It's really, again, it's late disclosure. Sometimes you're trying to testify and recall events not only that was traumatizing but happened years and years ago. And we talk about all the time, like, I'm talking about the Karen Reed trial today. If you next week ask me these same questions, I'll give you a different answer. It doesn't mean I'm lying. It's just when you repeat things numerous times, it's it's going to be different. Like one of the things that we ask in a voir dire when we speak to the jury and try to decide whether or not they're going to sit on a trial is, as to credibility, is inconsistent statements. And oftentimes we ask somebody to explain, like, a certain scene from Forrest Gump, like we'll do the box of chocolate scene, and a juror is going to answer, explain that scene, and then we're asking another juror, like, well, what about you? And then obviously they're not going to be exact accounts of the box of chocolate scene, and then you say, like, do you think one of them is lying? And it's no, because people recall the same event different ways all the time. It's normal. So I don't know why I just went on a tangent about felonious sexual assault, but oh yeah, Michael Jackson. So that's why cases like that are difficult. So
No, I mean, again, I find it interesting. They're all like um, different circumstances and stories or whatever, but like it's still scale of it and the publicity and all of that, and they all kind of have that in common. It's a different scenario every time, but it's the same kind of trial and the basis of it. And so you think back on some of these other big ones that have been big public attention grabbing trials, and you can't help but like kind of start to compare them. I don't know. I find it interesting, and it's weird, that this was like what we talked about tonight. But I'm like, hey, you know what? We was just talking about it before the show with Nicole, and I know my mom was like following it, pretty intensely. She was really into the whole trial. So it's been up, and I'm like, you know what? I know people have been following it, and then I mean, I was just curious to get your take on a lot of stuff because, obviously you're in that field, and I know you follow it. So, but very interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. I mean, what happens now? She rides off into the sunset, disappears. Who knows? See her rolling around on Netflix in the next couple of years, probably. It's usually what happens. It's funny. Oh, go ahead.
regardless of what happens with her, I mean, she's going to make a lot of money and everything. I mean, there's two things, and one of them is she didn't do it, and she is mortified that it happened because in that case there were, obviously it was her significant other, so she'll definitely carry that going forward. Or she did do it and she got off, and there's always going to be that guilt with it. So, either way, emotionally, you have to appreciate that she's going to have some negative repercussions from this because it's either she did it and she has to live with it, or she didn't do it. And again, like that's for her, that's going to be traumatizing as well because, she was there when it happened. She saw him, and allegedly from testimony, she loved him. So it's either way, it's going to be negative down the road for her, even if she gets like the material benefit of the money from the documentaries and movies or whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll see. I was gonna say it's funny. You go on Netflix now, and all you see is like either documentaries or like more. It's mostly documentaries. There's not as many like dramatized versions, but they're out there. But like you go on there and you see like these like 7-part documentaries about like a crime and the subsequent trial, or just like the investigation. And I don't know. I feel like in general, people are just more interested in this stuff because, yeah, like you'd always have like these things like on TV like years ago, like different things and stories. But I just feel like it's more popular now. You can't like you go on Netflix now and it's like, what's new? There's 5 things on there that are like some like criminal story with a trial, or it's just like, you know, like a cold case thing, and there's all sorts of different shit that's on there, and there's
In
tons
that
of them.
Lincoln Lawyer show, like there's a lot of TV that have, obviously in the legal field that people are really into. So it's like there's definitely a lot of interest in, I guess, trial TV now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's a whole bunch of shit that I didn't even know like was a thing that like at one point in time was like on the news and shit, and because it's on Netflix, like the Menendez brothers thing. Like I didn't know about that, but that was a big deal when it happened. I didn't even know anything about that, but you go on Netflix, you can see the whole thing. What was the other one that I watched that was interesting? Oh yeah, the one with the 2 guys in Miami that were like the speedboat racers that pretty much like started the cocaine trade down in Miami back in the day, like in the 70s, 80s. And like how they like tracked them all down, and then how they then they go through the whole court proceeding thing after, and it's like, oh, I had no idea about this, but at the time it was a big deal. There's a lot of that stuff on there now, and this will probably end up being another one of those, and people will relive it again and form their own opinions. But yeah, it's interesting. I'm watching the time. Let's do our trivia for the week, and we'll get that rolling, which is as always brought to you by Perdomo Cigars. That's right, Perdomo, our 2024 cigar of the year, the Perdomo 30th anniversary Sun-Grown Epicure. Sun-Grown. Sun-grown. Love the sun-growns from Perdomo. They stand for quality, tradition, and excellence. Nothing but the best from Perdomo cigars. I'm curious to see what you got for me this week. This is simultaneously one of the more fun segments and also the most terrifying segments because I'm always excited to hear what the questions are, but then I feel like I flop on them every time, and then I just feel like an idiot. But that's why we do it, because it's, it is what it is. All right. What's your theme this week? Do you have a theme, or are they all different?
I might do some history here.
All right. Let's go for it.
What year did the Berlin Wall fall?
1991.
Close.
Really? I thought it was... No, you're right. 91 was the fall of the Soviet Union. So, Berlin Wall was 1992? Was it before or after?
It's before.
All right, so I'm stuck between like 89 and 90 because I know I feel like it was right in there. I'm gonna go 89.
It's 89. Yep.
Yeah, I knew it was close. I knew it was in that, but then 91. That's right. 91 was when the Soviet Union ended. So yeah, Berlin Wall was before that. 89. Yeah. All right, I was close. I feel good about that one. Feel good about it.
That was good. What year did the Titanic sink?
1912.
Did I ask that before?
I don't recall, but I know that one because it sank the same week that Fenway Park opened. And I want to say it was April. Was it April 11th? Was it April 11th?
I think so. I did ask that because I remember you gave the explanation that that's when Fenway opened.
Yeah, I mean, for Red Sox fans who know the history, that's a pretty easy one.
I'm going to switch to movies because I feel like you've in the past said you prefer movies.
I mean, I'm better at those usually.
Well, now you're going to get them. So, which original Avenger was not in the first few movies?
Like which, like superhero, or like the actor?
No, yeah, like the actual like superhero, not
The character. Okay.
Character, yeah.
Was not in the original like the original Avengers. But see, here's the thing: I didn't watch the Avengers. All right. Side note here. Side tangent. In the beginning, like years ago, before they like really took off, I was into a lot of them. Like the Batmans were good, the Spider-Mans were good, the Iron Man 1 and 2. I was like into those. I like Robert Downey Jr. a lot. But then, like, when they just started making, like, movies about, like, every superhero, that I'm like, who the hell is... I never even heard of that. Like, Ant-Man? Like, I never heard of that. And then the Avengers took off. I didn't hate it. It was just kind of like, you know what? Like, I can't stay on top of all these different superhero things. And I kind of tapped out. So, I never really watched all the Avengers. Now, having said that, trying to, like, use my memory here, I'm like, well, from what I do know... trying to remember, like, well, who was in the Avengers? It was, let's see.
I don't think you'd be able to get it if you don't watch the movies.
Yeah, that's the thing. Was Black Panther in the
No.
Avengers? No.
I'll give the answer and move on because I don't think you're gonna
Yeah,
get
no, I probably won't.
It was the Wasp.
Yeah, I never would have got that. I never heard of the Wasp.
So for DC Comics, what does DC stand for?
What does DC stand for?
Yep.
God, I have no idea.
We're not doing well today. I'll try to.
I'm not a big comic book guy. I was never one of the. Were you a comic book kid?
I wasn't.
I was thinking you were gonna be like, yeah, that's why I know all about it. I don't know. DC Comics? I have no idea.
It's Detective Comics. All right. What year was the first episode of South Park aired?
The first episode?
Yeah.
What year?
1997.
1997.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really into South Park, so I remember that. I got all the seasons. Got them. Although I heard that they're moving South Park to a different like streaming app. Like it's going from like Max to like Paramount Plus or something like that. And they're gonna like not include like a handful of episodes they thought were like the most offensive. And I'm like, I mean, they're already out there. Like what are you really doing? Like it's already out there. And South Park as a whole is pretty offensive as it is, so I don't know like how much you really gain by that. I mean, the rest of the episodes are still pretty bad, but okay.
See, if I
Whatever.
want, I'm not. This isn't one of the questions here, but imagine I have one here that says during what time of year does the Broadway show Nutcracker typically play?
Well, it's the holidays. November,
Yeah,
December, yeah.
imagine getting that wrong.
I think it takes place in like July. It's like, what? You know somebody would though. The sad thing is, I've watched enough of those like on the street interview things, like, you know, videos where like people go and they ask people like random questions and you see people answer some of these questions and you're just like, dude, like you don't have to be like into like or like an expert on certain things, but it's like how do you just not know that? That is just like insane. And they answer it
This
so confidently too. You're just like, wow. It's sad.
is the last one's probably an easy one, but we'll see.
We'll see.
What is the Ford Mustang named after?
It's named after the P-51 Mustang, not the
It
horse.
is.
Even though the horse appears as its primary icon logo, it's not named after the horse. It's the P-51 Mustang.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, that was an easy one for me. I'm a Mustang guy, so I know a lot about the Mustangs. Could do a whole show just on that. Very interesting. Anyway, it's time for our news. I'm gonna save that actually. It's time for our news, brought to you by Micallef Cigars. If you head over to Micallef Cigars today, you can check out their new Color Series portfolio, featuring the black, the blue, the red, and now the purple, with, I believe, the green to come. Check them out today at Micallef Cigars. The news this week, I'll touch on two things, kind of headlines. One, because Pat already kind of brought it up, La Flor Dominicana has released the Oro in full count boxes. They were previously available in the golden tubos in 5-count packs. They are now being available in standard untuboed 20-count boxes in both natural and Maduro, and retailers now have them. So if you're a fan of those and you want to buy them in large quantities finally, more easily, now you can. You can buy them by the box. And coming from STG, Cohiba ships its latest Spectre release. The Cohiba continues to redefine the cigar experience with the latest release of Spectre, an ultra premium limited edition offering that brings together rare tobaccos, expert craftsmanship, and next level packaging. The latest Spectre release features a 7-year aged Havana Canega 2017 wrapper and introduces the first ever Criollo 98 grown in Mao, Dominican Republic, making it one of the most distinctive blends in Cohiba's portfolio. That also reminded me, another legal thing, the whole Cohiba trademark thing. I feel like we could do a whole show just on that thing. That whole back and forth and all. But we don't have the time today. But I'm going to table that, and maybe we'll get into that, because that's another good legal discussion to use your other expert opinion on. But it's a little more cigar focused, so I think it may be even better for this show. But I'm going to save that for later. Maybe spare notes we'll get into that, because then we can get Coop's kind of feedback on it too. It's a good idea. I'm going to write that down. But anyway, that is our news this week, brought to you by Micallef Cigars. Yeah, pretty simple show tonight. So that was cool. That was easy. You did most of the talking this time. See what I did there? I got you talking. That was easy though, because I already had it. I'm like, Karen, read trial, go. That was nice. See, Pat does talk, and he has a lot to say, and sometimes you can't shut him up. You just got to get him going, you know. Like a snowblower, that first winter, it's been sitting all year. Takes a little extra. You really crank it and get some of that starter flavor. It fires up and it runs strong too, but it just needs a little, that's Pat. It just needs a little extra, and then bang, he's off and running. But yeah, that's our show for this week. It was light. It was good. Not a lot going on in the cigar business right now. Not that there's not anything to talk about, but it's not like we left out anything. There's nothing substantial that we missed.
Yeah.
And then Coop will listen to the show and be like, how did you not know? And I'll be like, you know what? I didn't hear about it, so I don't know. Next time, write it to me, so I'll talk about it on the show. But no, yeah, that's our show this week, guys. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Same time, same place next week, as always. And as always, head over to SmokinTabacco.com for more news, reviews, and updates from the cigar industry. And with that, we say good night. Take care.